Reviewing the film, I don't feel a whole lot different than I did after the game. We did a lot of really good things, in this game, made a lot of explosive plays offensively, did a good job of creating balance, run and pass. Defensively, we played really well, for the first, couple quarters of the game. But really, we lost our intensity in the third quarter. Had a disastrous third quarter relative to statistics, relative to errors in the kicking game, relative to field position, time of possession, whatever you want to talk about. But have to give the team a lot of credit for gaining the resiliency to, come back and play really well in the fourth quarter, which was, really the difference in the game. So a lot of lessons to be learned here. And hopefully our players will learn that I think we had the right mindset playing on the road. We started out the game really, really well. I don't think we sustained it like we need to. And that's the next step of what we need to learn. But, Texas A&M has a really, really good team. These guys have a lot of good players. Jimbo does a really good job of coaching them. A lot of challenging, things on offense has always been the case with him being a really, really good offensive coach and play caller. They got some very explosive players on offense. Evan Stewart's a really good receiver. A-Chain, I think I'm saying his name correctly. Number 6 is really an explosive player, not only as a returner, but as a runner and a receiver. I mean, this guy is a very, very talented guy. So they've got a really, really good offensive team. They've got a really good defensive team, one of the top defensive teams in, the SEC. They've got really good specialists. So, this is a really good team all the way around. And, what happened in last week's game is not going to have any effect on what happens in this game. We could go say it was the same situation a year ago. They're going to play really well against us, and we got to be ready to play our best, as a team to be able to take advantage of it. I know you're interested in the injury situation. Really, there's no updates on Bryce. He's got a little bit of a shoulder injury. It's not a long-term, type injury. He's going to be day to day when he can get back to, throwing. And we'll just have to evaluate it day to day. So I can't tell you if that's going to be today, tomorrow, or the next day. Brian Branch should not going to practice today, but should be okay after today. Justin Boygby is he's got a neck injury that we're having specialists look at to make sure we manage correctly, and we're not going to allow him to play until we can get the exact most expert plan of action for him and his future.
I wanted to follow up with you on something you mentioned in the post game on Saturday about Kool Aid going in kind of as an emergency star. What kind of a growth experience can that be for him? And also from a coaching standpoint, now that he's had that live exposure, does it make sense to give him some basic training in case the need comes up again?
Yeah, well, we trained him, and I guess I wasn't totally specific or wasn't trying to be dishonest, but we trained him in fall camp to be able to do this. So it wasn't like he's never done it before. We just hadn't practiced him because we thought we had 3 capable stars. Jaquez Robinson, not being available for the game because of an injury left us 2, and both of them went down in the game. So, yeah, well, if we have 3, I'm fine with that. But if we need to, we will train him some at that position. Kool-Aid's a really bright guy. He's very smart. He understands football. So it's not really hard. He's not one of those guys that need a whole bunch of reps to be able to play a different position, because he has a pretty good understanding of the concept. And but we will.
It's one thing to know you're one snap away from entering the game as a starting quarterback, but how do you think that Jalen handled that transition from going from the bench to the game?
Well, we try to put him in other games so he gets the opportunity to play. So it's not the first time he ever goes in a game. But hopefully that's what you try to do is prepare guys. So when they get an opportunity, they're ready to play. That's why you try to get guys really good game experience. So if they have to play, they feel more comfortable going into the game. But you'll have to ask him how he felt. I can't answer that question. I just know as a coach what we try to do to prepare him so that they feel like at least psychologically they're in the right place to go out there and read things and make the right choices and decisions. It's why we practice. It's why we give guys experience. And we've been fortunate that, Jalen got a pretty good bit of experience, in these first few games.
After the game, you talked about the blocking being good on those long runs in the fourth quarter, but what do you think of the offensive line's performance as a whole on the road?
Yeah, well, they did a good job in this game, especially. I think this was the best game we've played. I think they've shown improvement every week. I think that's important. I think that, you're talking about a team that had 15 sacks, going into the game, led the league in sacks. And they say they got one sack. I guess it must have been on Bryce's scramble. He must have lost a half an inch or something on that play. But I thought they did a great job in pass protection, too, against some pretty good pass rushers and a pretty good pressure scheme.
A&M's starting quarterback also had a bit of an injury in their last game. How do you prepare as a defense when you're not sure who the quarterback is going to be throughout the week?
Well, I mean, we've seen a little bit of both guys. We don't really know what the circumstances of the situation, but we have to prepare for both guys. I mean, we do this a lot, especially when the skill set of the two guys is a little bit different. We have no way of knowing if 13 plays, if they're going to do something different with him. We just have to prepare for what we know they've done in the past and be ready to adjust in a game if there's something different.
Yes, Coach. I was wondering, it seems like all good teams at some point in the season have a really tough game. And even if you win it, do you get something out of that, an intangible later on, or is there any record of that, I guess, that you would say you do or don't?
Well, I would say that, we've only had, two teams around here in 15 years that have gone undefeated. That didn't mean that the teams that lost a game necessarily didn't have, in some cases, the same amount of success as the other. All right, the question is do you need to lose a game to learn? Do you need to lose a game to get it right? Do you need to lose a game to say it's important to practice the right way, do things the right way, take care of myself the right way? The middle of the season is not the time to think about getting rest. You rest at the end of the season. All right, the season is a grind. Practice is a grind. Preparation is a grind, mentally and physically on players. But you got to make a choice. Are you going to grind through that and continue? Or can you learn from the lessons when you win as well as when you lose? Or do you have to lose to learn the lessons? And I think that's a dynamic that every team has to prove that they can continue to do these things over the course of the season.
You had mentioned on Saturday that Bryce had a few types of these injuries before. How did you guys kind of handle that in the past?
Well, there's nothing to handle. What do you want me to handle? I mean, only thing I would tell Bryce is don't put yourself in a bad position. He could have thrown the ball away before, and he could have just let the guy tackle him. In either case, he probably wouldn't have an issue. All right, but putting himself in the awkward position of trying to throw the ball on his way down and then, landing the way he did, just try to avoid those kind of circumstances and situations for any injury. But again, that's it's not a criticism. It's a teaching moment that players have to learn. And the thing about great competitors, and Bryce is a great competitor, is they always want to make a play. They're going to go to the last nth degree to make a play. But sometimes you got to know when there's no play to be made. And now it's time to not put myself at risk.
You've talked about Jalen Milroe's unique skill set. Just given that, is there a thought of maybe putting a package together for him, regardless of Bryce's injury status?
We already have one. So do you want us to put a new one together now just because he might play, or use the old one? I mean, we can do either one. I mean, I'll go talk to the offensive coaches and see. Again, I don't talk to Jimbo on a regular basis, but I'll call him and tell him right after the conference if you want me to. I mean, you guys think I'm going to tell you what we're going to do with our offense and our team? You might as well make it up. I saw today where there's headlines in the paper that, I'm going to keep it a secret what we're going to do with Bryce. It sounded like me making that statement, but I've never said that. But it was there in black and white. So you can make up whatever you want to make up. Look at somebody else's running quarterback and say they should put these plays in. I think that'd be a better way to do it.
Hey, Coach, Kool-Aid, local guy. You can tell he really loves his family. And it really seems like ever since high school, he's really dedicated himself to being the best football player he can be. You can teach a lot of things, but you can't necessarily teach that. Just talk about Kool-Aid's character.
Yeah, Kool-Aid is very competitive, very smart guy, is a hard worker, kind of understands what it takes to be successful, does a really good job of applying techniques and trying to do things the right way. And I think that has played, well for us so far this season. Done a really good job on the punt return, but I think the punt return team has done a really good job of executing as well. But I think, these kinds of guys that have this kind of competitive character are smart, make good choices and decisions in the game, whether it's what technique to use, the guy I'm covering, how do I need to do it? All those things enhance a guy's ability to be successful. And, Kool-Aid does that extremely well.
Hi, Coach. So social media has changed, the level of college football and just the game in general. And obviously, if we talk about you touched today on headlines, I want to know when you have those moments, and obviously this happened in the off season, but when you have those moments when there's all this criticism and outside noise, how have you learned to handle that when this noise has gotten so loud? And how do you help your players navigate those distractions as it only becomes worse?
Well, obviously, at times we haven't handled it very well because, I was talking about rat poison last year when we played this game. Nobody would listen. Players wouldn't listen. You all didn't listen. They had lost the week before. We were big favorites. It was like no big deal. Just show up for this game, go play the next game. And I don't get affected by it because I don't listen to you all. I really don't have any interest in what anybody thinks about any of this stuff. I do have an interest in how it affects and impacts the players on our team. And I think it does. And I think they have to show maturity in how they manage it and know that external opinion, external noise, whatever you want to call it, rat poison, whatever it is, absolutely has nothing to do with the outcome of the game. Just like fans have nothing to do with the outcome of the game. They don't block, they don't tackle, they don't catch passes, they don't make sacks. All they do is make noise. And if you want to take them out of the game, just play well, execute, and then they won't be there. They'll leave. So these are external factors that cannot affect how you think as a competitor in terms of respecting winning, respecting what you have to do to win, and how important it is. Knowing that we're going to get the other team's best game because they can all get well beating us. So that's how I try to handle it. Does anybody listen? Sometimes, sometimes not.
Just on one of Jahmyr's long touchdown runs yesterday or Saturday, they were blocking to the right and then a cutback lane opened up. How would you say that blocking, or can you describe how that blocking sets it up to where he's able to see a cutback lane and go and burst through it and go and score a long touchdown?
Well, I think that's a sign of a really good running back is you help the offensive line by how you stretch the play, press the hole, whatever it is, so that you lead them to their blocks. All right. Then when people overplay the blocks or get hooked, you stick your foot in the ground and hit it. All right. And that's what he did on both of his runs. That's what he does very well, whether it's an inside run or an outside run. So that's part of being a good back. It's not just take the ball and run it. All right. You have to understand, how are we blocking this play? How do I set these blockers up, all right, so that they have a best chance to succeed at their blocks? All right, which these plays were well blocked. He did a great job of running these plays, stretching, finding the seam and cutting. So you're trying to cut the defense some kind of way. All right, so you got these guys playing outside, you cut these guys off, you press it, and that's where you try to hit it, and that's what happened. All right, thank you.